Daniel Cross had always believed that helping others was the closest thing to a purpose he had. That belief was the reason he signed up for service at the Interstellar medical outpost floating along the quiet edge of known space. Life there was usually calm, almost predictable. Most days he assisted doctors with routine checkups for travelers from nearby colonies. Other days he helped carry supplies or updated patient records. Nothing extraordinary, nothing dangerous, and definitely nothing that would change a person's life forever. That calm ended the morning, the emergency. Alarm echoed through the hallways. Daniel had been sorting medical tablets in the storage room when the lights dimmed and the alert sounded. He rushed out to see staff members preparing the landing bay. A ship was coming in fast, broadcasting a distress call in a language that most translators couldn't process clearly. The only word that came through clearly was child. When the shuttle doors opened, Daniel saw a woman from the planet Velara carrying a small girl in her arms. Their species was humanoid, but their skin shimmered with a soft pattern of light that seemed to move like water. The girl was barely conscious, her breaths shallow, her skin color fading in a way the medical team didn't understand. The woman looked around, desperately, until her eyes landed on Daniel. She didn't know who he was, but she seemed to hope anyone here could help. She tried to speak through the translator device attached to her wrist, and finally the words came through. Please, save her. Daniel gently guided the woman and her child toward the medical ward, where the doctors began running scans. The team worked quickly, but the results were troubling. The girl's blood was breaking down from exposure to some unknown pathogen she had contracted during travel. Her species, although similar to humans, had complex blood chemistry. The doctors struggled to find a compatible solution. Daniel watched the mother pacing back and forth, her hands shaking. The girl, whose name the translator identified as Syrah, let out a weak sound. Every minute mattered. One of the doctors ran another test, this time checking for compatibility with all available donor samples at the outpost. None matched. The machine blinked red repeatedly. Daniel felt useless watching them struggle. But then the lead doctor turned sharply. There is one more sample we haven't tried, she said. She looked at Daniel. Yours. Daniel blinked. He had donated samples months ago during routine onboarding. He knew he had a rare universal donor blood type for humans, but he had no idea could match an alien species. The doctor's voice lowered. We don't know if it will work. It might not be enough, but it's her only chance. Daniel looked at Syrah. She was so small, barely moving, her breathing fragile and slow. The mother's eyes held a mix of hope and fear that made Daniel's chest tighten. He nodded. Tested. Minutes later, the results came back. His blood wasn't a perfect match, but it was compatible enough to stabilize her. The medical team needed to act immediately. The mother came to him, her expression unreadable. She touched her hand to her chest, a gesture he later learned meant deep gratitude. The translator beeped before producing her words. You would give your life to save mine, she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. Just my blood. And she be okay? She didn't seem to understand his attempt at light reassurance. Her eyes glimmered, and she simply said, You do not know what this means to my people. Daniel didn't have time to ask what she meant. The doctors were already preparing the transfusion room. They briefed him on the risks: mild fever, fatigue, possible allergic reactions. But nothing life-threatening for him. For the girl, however, this was everything. He sat on the medical bed, rolled up his sleeve, and let them insert the line. Across from him, in another bed, Syrah lay completely still. The doctor counted down, and the machine began moving the blood dot. At first, nothing happened. The room stayed painfully quiet, broken only by the steady beeping of the monitors. Daniel watched Syrah's small chest rise and fall, each breath slower than the last dot, Then the monitors flickered. Her heartbeat, which had been faint and irregular, steadied slightly. Her breathing grew stronger. A soft shimmer returned to her skin, as if tiny lights beneath the surface were waking up. The doctor let out a relieved sigh. "It's working." Daniel's shoulders loosened with a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Sierra's mother covered her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. She approached Daniel carefully, almost reverently, and whispered something the translator struggled to catch. "You have given life." It finally translated. Daniel tried to smile, despite feeling a bit lightheaded. Anyone here would have done the same. But her expression told him she didn't believe that. She bowed her head deeply, an action that made everyone else in the room freeze. Later, Daniel learned that Valeran culture rarely bowed. It was something done only in the presence of someone who had changed fate. The procedure took some time, and by the end, Daniel felt drained but steady. Sierra was asleep now, her chest rising normally. The doctor confirmed she would recover with continued care. As the medical team cleaned up, the mother approached again. She touched his hand, gently, not romantic, just symbolic, and the translator delivered her words. "I owe you a life debt. My family owes you everything, and I will honor it." Daniel tried to respond, but she had already stepped back. She stayed close to Sierra's bed for hours, barely moving, watching her child regain color and strength. Word about the event spread through the outpost quickly. Nurses thanked Daniel in the hallways, engineers nodded to him respectfully, and even visitors gave curious glances. He wasn't used to attention, and he didn't think of himself as any kind of hero. He had simply done what he hoped someone else would do if a human child needed help. That night, while lying in his small cabin, he thought about the mother's promise. Her tone had been firm, almost ceremonial. The way she said life debt carried a weight he didn't understand. Daniel wondered if he should ask someone about the customs of Valara, but he shrugged the thought away. He assumed it meant something simple: gratitude, maybe a gift, maybe a future visit. He had no idea it meant something far bigger, something far more complicated, and something that would soon turn his quiet life upside down. For now, though, he simply felt relieved knowing Sierra was safe. He couldn't predict what was coming, but he had a strange feeling that this single act of kindness was only the beginning of something he couldn't yet imagine. Daniel didn't expect to hear from Sierra's mother again so soon. But only 2 days after the rescue, a message came through the outpost communication system. It was formal, almost ceremonial, inviting him to visit the planet Valara as an honored guest. The station's director encouraged him to accept, saying it would help maintain good relations between humans and the Valeran people. Daniel agreed, though he felt uneasy. He wasn't used to being treated like someone important. He was just a volunteer who had donated blood. When he boarded the transport shuttle to Valara, he kept thinking about the strange way Sierra's mother had spoken of a life debt. The translator couldn't fully explain the cultural meaning behind the phrase, and Daniel didn't want to assume anything. Maybe it was just a custom like giving gifts or hosting a meal. He hoped it was something simple. As the shuttle descended through Valara's atmosphere, Daniel stared out the window in awe. The planet glowed in shades of teal and deep silver, with forests that shimmered like frost, even under bright sunlight. The city centers were built in curved patterns that looked almost like seashells rising from the ground. Soft streams of light flowed across the buildings, similar to the patterns on Valeran skin. When he stepped out, he was greeted by a small group of officials dressed in long, flowing robes. They welcomed him warmly, but their tone carried a level of respect that made him uncomfortable. It felt like he had somehow become a symbol rather than a person. Sierra's mother arrived soon afterward. Her expression was calmer than the last time he saw her, but there was still intensity in her eyes. She placed a hand on her chest again, repeating the gesture of deep respect. The translator attached to Daniel's wrist interpreted her words. You saved the life of my daughter. Our home opens to you. Daniel smiled politely. I'm happy she's doing well. That's all that matters. She is alive because of you, the translator spoke. This is not something our people forget. Daniel wasn't sure how to respond, so he simply nodded. She gestured for him to follow her, and the group began walking toward the city's central hall. The streets were lined with curious onlookers. Many whispered as Daniel passed, studying him as though he were part of something sacred. Inside the hall, he was guided to a circular chamber where the lights around the walls pulsed softly, almost like breathing. Several elders of the community entered, their presence quiet but commanding. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a slow, deliberate tone. The translator captured the meaning and delivered it to Daniel. You have bonded your blood with our kind. The child who lives because of you is now tied to your spirit. Such bonds are rare, powerful, and permanent. Daniel blinked, unsure he heard correctly. Bonded? Spirit? I just donated blood. I didn't mean for anything ceremonial to happen. Another elder spoke. On Velara, when someone saves the life of a child, especially through their own body, it creates what we call a lineage tie, a connection through generations. Daniel's heart sank a little. This was exactly the kind of misunderstanding he had hoped to avoid. I'm honored, really, but humans don't have those kinds of traditions. I didn't know this was part of your culture. The elders nodded in understanding, but their next words surprised him. The mother of the child must now join her lineage with yours. That is our custom. Daniel froze. Join lineage? Do you mean? Before he could finish, Sira's mother stepped forward. Her voice was softer, but her expression was firm. Our laws say that the one who saves a child becomes part of their future bloodline. I am expected to continue our family line with you, so the bond stays strong. This is not a demand from me. It is the duty given to me by our society. Daniel felt heat rush to his face. He raised both hands gently. I think there's a misunderstanding. Humans believe in choice, personal decisions. I can't agree to something like that just because of a rule. The room grew tense. The translator struggled to keep up as everyone began speaking at once in confused tones. One of the elders eventually calmed the room. We do not wish to cause you harm, but refusing a life debt is considered a deep insult. It means rejecting the child who shares your blood. Daniel shook his head. I'm not rejecting her. I care about her. I'm glad she's healthy. But humans don't follow laws about joining families. It's something people decide for themselves. Sira's mother stepped closer. Our people will not understand your refusal. They may think I have failed my duty. They may think you dishonor our customs. Daniel felt a sinking feeling. He didn't want to insult anyone. He didn't want Sira's mother to face trouble either. The last thing he wanted was to be the cause of conflict on a peaceful world. He took a slow breath. Let's talk, he said calmly. There must be another way to honor your customs without forcing either of us into something we don't want. She studied him for a long moment. The room fell silent. Then she gave a small nod and guided him to a quieter side chamber. Only the two of them remained. Her voice, when she spoke again, had softened. I do not wish to force you. I only wish to do what my people expect. But I also saw how gentle you were with my daughter. I know you acted from kindness, not obligation. Daniel relaxed slightly. Exactly. And I don't want to disrespect your culture. I believe families should be chosen, not assigned. She took a slow breath. Perhaps we can explain that you are from a different world. Your customs are different. But some in our society will argue that the bond must be completed. They believe that a life saved is a life joined. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. What if we create a new kind of bond? Something symbolic, something meaningful to both sides, but not permanent or something I'm not ready for. She tilted her head thoughtfully. You mean a ritual or agreement that stands in the place of lineage joining? Yes, he said. A gesture of unity without forcing us into anything we didn't choose. She considered it carefully. It may work, but some powerful groups here believe strongly in tradition. They may resist. Daniel sighed, but he nodded. Then we explain, patiently, respectfully. I'm willing to meet anyone who needs to hear it. She gave him a small, grateful smile. You are brave, human. Braver than you know. Their moment of calm didn't last long. Outside the chamber, voices were rising. A group of citizens had gathered, believing Daniel had already accepted the lineage bond. When they heard rumors that he might refuse, they grew uneasy. Some whispered that rejecting the bond would weaken their traditions. Others argued that forcing an outsider was unfair. Daniel realized how quickly misunderstandings could grow on a world he barely knew. He looked at Sira's mother. We need to fix this before it gets out of control. She nodded. We will, together. Daniel didn't know what would happen next, but he understood one thing clearly now. The life debt he had stepped into was far more complex than a simple thank you. It was bigger than him, bigger than one family, and bigger than one act of kindness. He had come to Velara expecting a simple ceremony. Instead, he stood in the middle of a cultural stone one that could change not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him. When Daniel woke the next morning on Velara, he felt as if the entire planet was watching him. Even the soft lights built into the walls of the guest chamber seemed to pulse with quiet expectation. The previous day had been overwhelming misunderstandings, traditions he had never heard of, and a mother who believed she owed him her family's entire future. He had fallen asleep wondering how everything became so complicated from something as simple as donating blood. He hoped today would be easier. But when Sira's mother arrived to escort him to the council meeting, the tension in her expression made it clear that things had only grown more serious. She walked beside him in silence as they made their way through the tall, curved halls of the central city. Outside, groups of citizens gathered near the edges of the plazas. They didn't shout or push, but they whispered among themselves, sending glances his way, some curious, some hopeful. And some worried. Daniel kept his eyes forward, trying not to read too much into their expressions. He wasn't here to cause trouble. He just wanted to find a peaceful solution. When they entered the council chamber, the elders were already seated. The room felt heavier today, as if the air itself carried emotion. Sira's mother took her place beside him, standing rather than sitting, a silent sign of support. One of the elders spoke first. There are many concerns among our people. They learned you may reject the lineage bond. They fear this will dishonor the traditions that protect our families. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand their worries, but where I come from, people choose their own families. They decide their own futures. It cannot be forced. The elders listened quietly, but their eyes showed confusion. Another spoke. Our customs are ancient. They were created to protect unity. To refuse a bond is to break harmony. Daniel chose his words carefully. Harmony must include consent. If a tradition hurts someone, even a small bit, maybe it's time to adjust the tradition, not the person. His words caused a wave of murmurs through the room. Some elders exchanged uneasy looks. One gave a soft sigh. Our laws have never changed. They have held our society stable for hundreds of cycles. Sira's mother finally spoke, her voice steady and clear. Times change. People grow. Our laws must also grow. A bond created with kindness should not become a burden. Her statement surprised everyone, even Daniel. She had spoken directly against tradition in front of the council, and from their stunned expressions, it was something rarely done. An elder turned to her. "You believe the bond should not be required?" She paused, taking a careful breath. "I believe that a life debt should honor the one who gives life, not trap them. Daniel's world is not our world. His customs are not our customs. But his heart is kind. Forcing him will only create suffering where there should be gratitude." Daniel felt a quiet warmth in his chest. He didn't fully understand her culture, but he understood courage. She was risking her own reputation to protect him, and perhaps to protect her daughter's future. Another elder spoke, this time addressing Daniel. "If the lineage bond is refused, what do you offer in its place? What act can satisfy the meaning of the life debt?" Daniel had spent the night thinking about that. He knew he needed an alternative, something that showed respect without tying him into a lifetime commitment. "I'd like to become what humans call a guardian," he said. "Not a parent, not a partner, but someone who cares for the child's future. Someone who stands by her if she needs help. Someone who stays connected to your family without breaking my own freedom." The room fell quiet. He continued, "I can be part of her life. I can visit, communicate, support her growth. Not because a rule demands it, but because I want to help." One elder spoke softly. "A chosen bond rather than a required one." Daniel nodded. "Yes, a bond of choice." Sira's mother looked at him with gentle gratitude. "This I can accept," she said. But not everyone was convinced. A group of citizens gathered outside the chamber had grown impatient. People began arguing loudly among themselves. Some believed the new idea showed respect. Others insisted tradition must stand unchanged. The voices grew louder, echoing through the hallways. The council guards stepped forward, worried the disagreement might spill into the chamber. Daniel felt pressure building, like a misunderstanding turning into something much bigger than him. One elder raised a hand for silence. "There is unrest among the people. We must address them directly." Daniel followed the elders and Sira's mother onto a high platform overlooking the plaza. A large crowd had already gathered. They stared up at Daniel as if waiting for a decision that would shape their future. Sira's mother stepped forward first. Her calm voice carried across the open space. "My daughter lives today because of him. He gave blood when he did not have to. He acted not as a Valeran or a human, but as a person who cares for life. We must meet that kindness with understanding, not pressure." Her words softened part of the crowd, but others still looked uncertain. Daniel took a slow breath and stepped up beside her. "I respect your culture," he said gently. "I respect your traditions, but I also respect choice. I cannot join your lineage not because I reject you, but because my world teaches me that such decisions must come from the heart, not from rules." The crowd listened. Their expressions slowly shifted. "I want to stay in Sira's life," he continued. "I want to guide her as she grows, not as family created by tradition, but as family created by kindness. If you accept this, I promise to honor it." The plaza fell silent. Then an elder stepped forward, speaking loudly so all could hear. "We agree to a new path, a guardian bond, a connection of support, not obligation. Let this be a new tradition, shaped by a moment of life saved." A wave of relief washed across the crowd. Many nodded, some smiled, and a few simply looked thoughtful. Slowly, the tension in the air began to disappear. Sira's mother turned to Daniel, her eyes soft with gratitude. "You have changed more than my daughter's fate. You have changed us." Daniel gave a small smile. "I think you changed me too." The days that followed were peaceful. Daniel visited Sira often. She was recovering well, her skin glowing brighter each day. She would reach for his hand whenever he entered the room, and he felt something warm and protective rise in him each time. He wasn't her parent. He wasn't her father. But he was something important, now a guiding presence, a chosen part of her life. Before returning to the outpost, Daniel stood with Sira's mother outside the city. The shimmering forest behind them rustled softly, sending little waves of silver light through the trees. "You will return?" she asked. "Of course," Daniel said. "I promised I'd be part of her life." She nodded. "The guardian bond is new to us, but I believe it is right." He smiled. "Then we'll make it work. Together." As he stepped onto the shuttle back to the outpost, Daniel realized something surprising. He had come to Velara expecting a simple thank you. Instead, he had helped create a new tradition, shaped friendships across worlds, and found a place he would always return to. The life he saved had changed his own life in ways he never imagined. And somewhere on a shimmering alien world, a small child slept peacefully, her future brighter than ever, connected, not by obligation, but by a bond freely chosen.